Alright, just watch these chords. Harry! I love that gavel. Welcome, my name is Harry Schwartz. I'm the president of the Rose Society of Tucson, and welcome this evening. First of all, I'd like to see if we have any new people, new guests who would like to introduce yourselves. Well, there's one.
Mindy Sensiba, and I'm Catherine's guest.
Oh, nice. And how many roses do you grow?
I just started. She infected me with her desire.
Oh, good job, good job.
I'm also a guest of Catherine's. My name is Levita Torkey. We live in Saddlebrook, and I have about, 8 roses?
That's a good start. Very good. Welcome, welcome.
Me? This is Mary.
Oh,
Just like that.
one of the foster parents, Mary Toth, and I've actually been a member since 2000, like 22 years.
Wow.
And
wow.
I come off and on, and I'm here tonight, I'm on tonight.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
How about over here? Well, welcome everyone. Yes, from Bisbee.
I'm Karen Berry. I'm a very novice French grower. I've got 3 that are successful right now and about 20 that are food for the year. I'm trying to send it to me, lots of information. So
Oh, good.
It's been nice.
Well, awesome. Well, tonight is actually the Rose Society of Tucson's birthday. We were founded on February 1st. This is the official charter from the American Rose Society. It's old as the hills. Almost as old as me. Whereas the Rose Society of Tucson, organized in 1960, having applied for membership and complied with the bylaws, rules, regulations, and policies of the American Rose Society, is hereby granted this charter as an affiliated club, first charter 1960. This charter places responsibilities and obligations on the above-named organization to promote the aims and purposes of the American Rose Society while granting rights, privileges, and services. In witness whereof are appended the signature of the American Rose Society executive officers, blah, 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 blah. This first day of February, AD 1960, so it's official. So, happy birthday to us. We will have cake brought by Catherine, so after the meeting, have a piece of cake and celebrate. And with that, I'm going to have Les Pate come up and tell us what we should be doing this month.
I'm gonna take this off. I'm thrice shot and also had COVID, so I think I'm reasonably sterile, but probably not. Yeah, I'm the oldest surviving member. I'm not since 1960. I think.
1960 you joined?
Somewhere in the mid-70s. Somewhere in the mid-70s. So, yeah, my wife and I are the oldest surviving members, I think. So, those of you who don't know me, I was in the nursery business for about 35 years and specialized in roses. And over those 35 years, I probably sold somewhere between 50 and 60,000 rose bushes. So we used to sell the large bushes in 5-gallon cans. We'd sell between 12 and 1,500 a year. And we did, in those days, we did between 300 and 500 miniatures a year. So it was a big part of our nursery business. A lot of work, low profit. But it was enjoyable, and got to know an awful lot of people over the years. The main things to do right now in your garden is finish pruning. Procrastination time is getting shorter, so try and finish getting your roses pruned. You wanna get them all pruned, strip all the leaves off, clean up all the debris underneath them. Do not compost it, get rid of it, because it's, all those little leaves and stuff are a place for insects and diseases to grow. So it's a good idea to clean all that up when you're through. About 10 days after you've pruned, you can go through with some Elmer's glue, the carpenter's glue, and seal the tips of the canes, because we have a wasp that lays an egg in there and bores a hole down through the cane. It won't kill the cane, but it weakens it. So it's good, anything over about pencil size, 1/4 inch. Start on the inside and work your way out. If you start at the outside and work your way in, then you end up with glue all over you. If you've ordered roses from wherever, on the phone, through the internet, and they're not here yet, start bothering people. I've already heard several people who told me they've been told their roses are delayed, so it's just like everything else. So try and get shipments to come in as soon as you possibly can.
You have a question?
I have a quick question. I've always used the glue right away. Is there a serious reason to wait 10 days? I do it all at once, I love them.
Well, a lot of times if your roses are really well hydrated, after you cut them, they weep.
Oh,
And if you put the glue on there, it dissolves the glue and then it all runs down
Yes.
the cane and makes a mess. You'll have white streaks all running down.
that's a
that
good
cane.
reason, thank you.
So if you let that little top harden off for a few days. We're gonna get a real hard freeze here this week,
Yay.
probably the coldest. And it does not harm your roses, do not cover your roses. Matter of fact, the springs that we've had the best roses are usually the years that we've had the hardest freezes. But a lot of times the hardest freezes go along with plenty of rainfall, which we have not had. You know, we got deluged in July and everything else has been just not much. When in about somewhere around the middle of the month, I like to put a big handful of alfalfa pellets or alfalfa meal around each of the rose bushes. You can get that at Arizona Feeds.
No,
No?
no more alfalfa meal.
No
You can
more.
get
Yeah,
horse
you
pellets.
can get the pellets.
Yeah, they can't get the meal in anymore.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So they're called, if you go in and just tell them you want horse pellets, unfortunately, they come in a 50-pound bag, but if you keep them dry, they're fine. But they have two different ones. They have one that's just ground up alfalfa, and it has some molasses mixed in it as a binder. And then they have one that has all kinds of nutrients that are good for horses, but it also has some salt added to it. And we don't need any more salt in our soil, so make sure you're plain horse pellets. And I'll start feeding around the 3rd week, and you can also apply a organic fertilizer like Milorganite or blood meal, cottonseed meal, any of those. And since they are organic, they do need to be activated by the soil, and the cold soils don't do much, but as soon as it starts warming up, you'll start getting a little bit of action out of that. And it also helps create bacterial action in the soil. And then I'll start feeding, and I'm pretty much a Magnum Grow person. That's almost the only thing I feed with. I do use time release fertilizer sometimes, a little bit later in the year, but I'll use this about every 2 weeks. And it's,
When do you start that?
I usually start the last week in February, first week in March.
Do you start full strength or half
Yeah.
strength? Full
Yeah,
strength.
on established plants. Yeah, do not feed your new roses until they've got a minimum of a foot of growth on them, and preferably your soil should probably have enough nutrients in them to get them to grow up, and don't do any pruning or fertilizing until after their first bloom. Anything else?
The horse pellets, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask you about the Epsom salt.
Uh-huh.
Do you ever use those on your, or not?
Epsom salts?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'll put some of that on probably the third week of this month, or
Is it
first
third week?
March.
Okay.
Yeah, about the third week, second to third.
Mhm,
You can put it on almost any time.
mhm.
Epsom salts is great stuff, it's magnesium sulfate. And magnesium is the number 2 ingredient in the chlorophyll molecule. It's magnesium in the middle with nitrogen around it. And Magnum Grow is the only fertilizer on the market that actually has Epsom salts in it. But it doesn't hurt to add more.
Mhm.
You can't hardly burn with it, and buy the cheapest one you can find. It's all magnesium sulfate. It doesn't matter whether it's got some doctor's name on it or just some generic house brand. It's all the same stuff. So the $4 box works just as well as the $9 box or bag.
Do you use fish meal for anything?
You can. Some people object to the smell. If you have wild cats in your neighborhood, you may be attracting unwanted feline pests, so.
Would you use that as a substitute for something?
No.
Or with something?
No, use it as an organic based fertilizer, so. And you can even take cottonseed meal, blood meal, fish meal, mix them all together, put them on a tarp or in a wheelbarrow and mix them all together. And sprinkle about a cup around each of your established roses.
They don't have it anymore at the feed stores. You have to order it online.
Okay.
Apparently there was an explosion in one of the silos. They were storing the fish meal and it burned to the ground and they haven't rebuilt and they're
Yeah,
trouble.
well, they had an explosion in a fertilizer factory today down.
I'm
in
sure it was a lovely
down-
smell.
Down in North Carolina, but, and their main product that they produce is ammonium nitrate, which is what they
We
use
have
to make it.
evacuated the area and stopped fighting with fire
Yeah, which is what they use to make
because of
a
fear
lots
of
of
a larger
illegal
explosion.
explosives. That's what they
previous
used to blow up
mines.
the explosion
Better
in
than like
Oklahoma
forest.
City was
We
ammonium
evacuated,
nitrate,
but
so.
off campus.
It's highly flammable and explosive, so. So that'll be an excuse to raise the price of fertilizer even more. Yeah, if you have a fertilizer you like and you're very happy with it, and you can find it, buy as much as you can possibly store. Because as Kevin's gonna tell you, the price of fertilizers has just gone through the roof in the last 3 to 6 months. Some of them more than double.
We're gonna turn you into hoarders.
Yeah. Right, you can put it next to your toilet paper.
Just keep it track, powder.
Anything else?
The alfalfa pellets, you just buy a bag of, because I used to feed that to my horses.
Yeah,
I mean, they're pretty big.
yeah, they're about
Yeah.
up this big.
Do I crush them up or just?
No, just put a handful of water,
Okay.
put some water on them, and the first time you wet them down, you won't see anything. The second time, they'll start to sort of expand, and
Mhm.
after 3 or 4 waterings, they'll turn into worms about this big, and then they'll start to dissipate,
Okay.
so.
And just do that once?
The alfalfa?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it throughout the year, it's never gonna hurt anything.
Okay.
Yeah, alfalfa it adds to bacterial action in the soil, and it has a chemical in it called tricantanol. And tricantanol has been used as a growth stimulator for many years by, especially greenhouse growers that are producing, cut flowers.
Okay.
So, yeah, and again, you probably can't put too much on. If your roses are out in an exposed area at all, the rabbits will just love you.
Oh.
And they may eat your roses too, so, and the javelina.
Right.
So, yeah, be a little, if your roses are exposed, you might not want to do that.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wind your way in there.
I'll throw up, I guarantee you.
Okay, we're really lucky tonight to have Kevin. He's a AAA fertilizer, and he's been with the company for 28 years. And to me, it's the greatest gold mine you'd ever want to have as far as fertilizers, herbicides, anything you can want in growing roses especially. And he has gotten advice and seen some terrible advice over the years. But he's gonna give a presentation on all the things that you should consider using, or at least be aware of, so you can grow the biggest and best roses you can. And again, Kevin, it's hard to get him out, because he works so darn hard. He works like 7.5 days a week. And, but we are really privileged to have him, and he's an institution in Tucson. So anyway, here's Kevin.
Trying to live up to that, dude. I think I'll start at the beginning as far as, I'm not sure how many people actually know what a fertilizer label is about, but the three primary ingredients are called NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. And then those are the primary plant nutrients. Nitrogen stimulates growth. Phosphorus stimulates root growth and bud formation. Potassium is responsible for cell structure, like overall plant vigor. So the combinations of those three things, ideally what you want is a fairly balanced one, unless you're trying to force something else. So like the Magnum grows in 8-10-8, so it's 10% phosphorus to promote more bud formation. The all seasons, like the most general purpose analysis that a lot of growers use, it's 20-20-20, so it's perfectly balanced to try and keep the plant from getting leggy or forcing buds. Some people will tell you that there's plenty of potassium in the soil here, but that's not really necessarily the case, because one of the most important things that actually affects like what nutrients do is pH of the soil. So ideally you want your soil to have a neutral pH, which is 7. You don't want it to be too alkaline or too acid. And if it gets to be that way, then nutrients that are even present in the soil are unavailable. Then you have what are called intermediate nutrients, and two of them are very important here. Calcium and sulfur are two of the most important. Magnesium, like we talked about with roses, is very important. And then manganese would be the fourth. Those are all present in a good fertilizer. Not all of them have it, but a really good soluble fertilizer should have all those in it. But calcium a lot of times is not, which is one of the reasons why I tell people that gypsum is incredibly cheap. It's calcium sulfate. You get 70% calcium for, well, maybe now $10 a bag, like Les was talking about, but it's something you should use pretty much on any plant you have in your yard. But between calcium and sulfur, anytime you're planting something in the ground, that's a good thing to incorporate along with some organic matter when you're digging a planting pit. If you're putting your roses in the ground, if they're in containers, it's still a good thing to put over the top because it's real soluble. And one of the other things that it does is it flushes salts out. So if you have hard water, it flushes out alkali pretty quickly too. The other nutrients that you have that are important, but they're called minor elements because you just need a small amount of them. Manganese, zinc, boron. Iron would be another one in this area that's actually more important than the others, because when you have to water a lot when it's hot, you tend to develop chlorosis in leaves. If you need nitrogen, you'll have just a general yellowing, but if you have iron chlorosis, you'll have dark green veins and a yellow leaf, and that's indicative of having an iron deficiency. And then molybdenum and copper are, for roses, not that important. And the way that you use your fertilizers, there's several different types. There's a granular fertilizer, which is what you see in like 20-pound bags typically, or 50-pound bags. Those typically take longer to dissolve and become available to the plant. A liquid fertilizer will give you the fastest response because it's going to be readily taken up by the root system. The water-soluble fertilizer is essentially, you're not paying for the water for a liquid fertilizer, you're supplying your own water, so it's less expensive than a lot of liquid fertilizers that you'll find. Slow release fertilizers like Osmocote are nice to work into the soil because they'll give you a controlled release over typically, depending on the formulation, anywhere between 4 and 6 months. Because they're all based on a 70-degree average soil temperature. And here we get a little hotter than that. And then the organic fertilizers are something that I tell people to use whenever they can, but they are actually the slowest reacting because they have to go a couple different chemical conversions to be available. And then typically on a fertilizer label, there's 3 different types of nitrogen. Ammoniacal nitrogen is what you'll find in ammonium sulfate or ammonium phosphate, which is why they have that actual lead into it. That one has to go through 2 different conversions to be available. Urea nitrogen is like a faster, slightly faster, but nitrate nitrogen is the type that's available to plants. When the other ones go through the conversion, they become nitrate nitrogen. Or in the case of North Carolina, it's a highly volatile type of nitrogen. But for plants, that's the one they want. Any questions so far? Yeah.
Do any of those have a shelf life?
No, any fertilizer, as long as you keep it dry, is fine. I mean, you could use it 10 years down the road. Any of those could. Certain liquid ones will settle out over time, and just re-agitate it and go back into solution. Jump on two?
Yeah, is there a real difference between granular and slow release fertilizers?
Well, the slow release fertilizer typically is a granular fertilizer that's encapsulated with, in the case of Osmocote, it's a polymer that they put over the, surrounded with, and they use different, like, diameters of it. That's how it becomes releasing over 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
They're not all the exact same thickness. But, I mean, basically all the growers that I do soil mixes for have not this retail type of Osmocote. They make a product that actually has the NPK plus the micros in it, but that only comes in 50-pound bags. They used to actually make a retail product, but they stopped doing it, which is unfortunate, because it's a great product.
So you've listed, I mean, a whole bunch of things that I've written down here.
Okay.
Are there any combination feeds that are available that would incorporate at least 2 or 3 of these in, so I don't need 8 bottles of feed?
Oh yeah, no, typically the water solubles will have a micronutrient package in them.
Oh, okay.
Not all granule fertilizers have very many micros in them. The granular fertilizers that we do have a really large gypsum and iron content, but not any magnesium, which that's the nice thing about that is it takes care of, really, it takes Epsom salts out of the equation with what Magnum Rose has in it.
So can you use the Magnum with your Osmocote? I mean, can you do them both?
Yeah, I mean, the Osmocote just gives you a margin for error if you incorporate it when you plant. If you miss a feeding, then you're still gonna get that. But no, this one's definitely the one to feed roses with, I'd say.
Yeah, I just wonder that.
But yeah, no, the Osmocote will not be a problem if you're also feeding the Magnum Rose.
You know, what, you were mentioning briefly about how you make different soil mixes. What do you think is the ideal soil mix that would be for these fertilizers that you're, because some of them are clay, some of them are, I mean, we've tried like 30 of them over the years, and some of them down here kill the plants, so. but I
Yeah,
know
well,
what
that's, I
you
mean,
do.
yeah, you don't really want something that's gonna hold too much water, you want something that'll drain. I mean, we do a mix, this is just a regular mulch compost, this is volcanic pumice. We do a mix that has mulch compost, volcanic pumice, and that Osmocote with the miners that I was talking about, and I think that's a real forgiving mix for just about anything. I've had people use it for vegetable gardens, I've had them use it for small container stuff, and it seems to be pretty forgiving.
And then do you sell that by the yard, by the pickup load?
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you're at your other plant, we used to get truckloads from it, and it was incredible. You know,
Yeah.
so I'm just curious.
No, it's pretty nice soil, actually, yeah. Now, I have people that put it in corrugated stock tanks that they get at the feed store for vegetable gardens, because I have a friend that used to actually run the nursery here. Teaches a class on vegetable gardening.
How do we get that mulch combination? Where do we get it from? From you?
Yeah, I mean, we deliver it to people every week.
I have another question.
Sure.
You know, the American Rose Society, their magazines recommend this Bayer all-in-one fertilizer that has, you know, insecticides or whatever you do. Do you recommend that?
Well, I mean, we sell a systemic, I wouldn't, yeah, I'm not sure if it helps you to actually put it in the soil mix to begin with. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different organic pesticides actually that I'd tell you to use instead of systemics unless you have an infestation of things. But, like the neem will take care of just about any, and the nice thing about it is it kills insects, but it also has fungicidal properties to it. But, no, I mean, where's it? Not sure where it's at, but yeah, there's a product that Monterey makes called once a year insecticide. And it's a systemic, and you just water it in, and it's taken up by the roots, so it pretty much is present the entire time. But no, I would never spray a systemic, actually. Their best use is a soil drench.
So the soil that you have, the smallest you get is a truckload?
I mean, yeah, you can get as little as a half of a yard, which is 13.5 cubic feet, so. But it's vastly cheaper than buying bags of stuff, and some of the products that you find in box stores, a lot of the soil I sell is to people who bought pallets of stuff and can't get anything to grow in it. So they want to know how to have a miraculous cure. I don't know the answer to that. But, yeah, they're not really thrilled to hear that.
Does that make some particular name that you call it?
It's just basically a generic potting soil, is what we call it.
Because we some at the extension propagation. But it has
Okay, yeah, yours is a different mix. Yours is a perlite
Yeah.
and mulch. It's considerably lighter than
I just
this.
wonder if you call up
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, I
Would you
actually have
ask
people that
for
order
that?
that all the time
for
too.
the rose mixture or the.
Yeah. No, that one's just really, really light.
Yeah, because it's for propagation.
Yeah, and I would just worry about that if you used it in like
No,
a
I-
planting
I
pit for a
use
tree
it.
or something, that it would have not
Yeah, we
much
just
body
use it
to
to
it. But yeah, no,
start
it's great if you're doing stuff in starters
Yeah.
or something like that.
I just got a couple of roses from Heirloom, and in it was this disclaimer now, first time I'd seen it, that says if you use granular fertilizer in the first year of growing your new roses, it will invalidate the guarantee.
Yeah, see, I could understand that, just because they're putting out new, fairly fragile roots.
So, but would you call, but Osmocote is coated. Now,
Yeah.
does that make it less?
Yeah, it's not gonna
dangerous?
release nearly, like a granular fertilizer, as you're watering, it's just gonna start dissolving at the exact same rate, and that's the difference
So
between
it's
that and the
better
slow
to
release.
use the
The slow release will
dissolvable ones.
release in a considerably
Yeah.
longer period of time.
And seaweed too, also.
Yeah, seaweed extract is a real low analysis nitrogen, so it would not have any, it would be impossible to burn something
Anything
with
that's
that.
liquid, right? When you put it on is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't, yeah, I mean, well, certain liquids though are like a 15% nitrogen, I would not use one of those. Because that would be pretty hot to put on
Yeah,
it,
but I
like
mean
new.
like Magnum, if you dissolve it
Mhm.
before you use it, anything like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, because I think you're basically only using like a teaspoon per gallon of water, so it's,
like a tablespoon.
yeah.
Or you could use that in the first year.
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, the water
Rhode
soluble
Valley says the same thing, don't use anything the first year.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And the other thing is, you should always follow the label directions, because if a pound is good, 5 pounds is disastrous, but some people think exactly the opposite.
So Kevin, how often do we put the Magnum on?
I think once a month is more than enough, but I don't know. People differ about that.
I think the instructions are once a month,
Yeah,
but
I think that's
Leslie
more than
uses
sufficient.
it every 2 weeks.
Yeah, the Rose Society, every 2 weeks.
I mean, yeah, if you're trying, it depends on what you're trying to do, because if you're, how often do you use it, Lou?
Well, we have two different types of, from February to the middle of April, we put it on every 2 weeks.
Okay,
And then in the fall, when it gets to be late September, we do the same thing every 2 weeks. But we also, we're exhibiting too, roses,
Right.
and we want to have them the biggest and best during those 2 times a year when it's not 120 degrees.
yeah,
And so then on the off weeks, we use fish emulsion,
okay,
but that's the only time. During the summer, we switch to something totally different. We put on the Milorganite
okay,
and then Osmocote. And
okay.
we only put Osmocote on once, around May 1st, and then once a month we put
Oh,
on the
just as a
Milorganite.
top dressing too?
Yeah, just a handful, and
Okay.
then, but again, Milorganite, once a month for the summers, and then Osmocote only once in May, and then that's what we do, and then that's the extent of it, but
Okay,
we're not gonna kill ourselves when it's 1,000 degrees out there, so.
yeah.
And
Yeah, I would definitely not put a granular fertilizer on in July or August either, unless you should definitely water it in well, that'd be what I'd say. Any other questions? Okay, then as far as the insecticide types, there are basically 3 different types. There's organic insecticides, like diatomaceous earth is a real nice one. If you have a worm problem, BT is by far the best product, because it is specific only to worms. When you have dormant ones, if you've had problems with something, just a dormant oil will pretty much smother any eggs that have been laid the previous year before the plant starts to leaf out. This product is pyrethrins, which is a contact kill and also an insecticidal soap material. The neem I've spoken about before. The garden insect spray is a product called Spinosad. There's literally not anything that I'm aware of that has a resistance to it. That would be the systemic insecticide I was talking about. I can't remember where I put it. And then there's contact insecticides that are basically, you have to actually hit the pest to kill it. But some of the other ones, like especially the dormant oil, pretty much give you a little bit of leeway.
Is there a certain temperature range that you can use neem oil or you shouldn't use neem oil? I've heard that if you use it when the temperatures are too hot, it might.
I would not use an oil-based product when you're basically June through August. Even though there are certain types of horticultural oil that say you can use it any time of year, and I have people that use it, and I've never heard of them having a problem with it. I'd be a little reluctant to. But if you're gonna do it, you should do it early in the morning or later in the afternoon. You should never actually apply any chemical in the peak of the summer in the middle of the day, because it's called phytotoxicity. The chemical actually will burn the leaves that you spray.
So in the summer, if you end up having a problem, what would you then use if you didn't have neem?
Actually, either this product or that Spinosad has not really a phytotoxic effect. But yeah, any of the oil-based ones, I'd be reluctant to tell you to use.
And are either better for like the trips?
Actually, the systemic would be best for thrips. Because they're real hard to actually get at with the contact, because they're buried down in there. And it's pretty hard to get rid of all of them, so you'd have to basically drench them. Be over-applying them. Let's see.
So you don't put a systemic on the leaves, you put it as a
As a
soil
soil
drench?
drench, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Will it burn or something, or?
Yeah, and it's taken up quicker by the roots than it is through the foliage.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, do you
Because
miss that?
typically a lot of those, a lot of those pests are also subterranean. So it's better to start with the roots and work your way up.
So if you're gonna apply like a merit, just do a soil drench?
Yeah, that's exactly what this is. Imidacloprid and merit are the same thing.
Okay.
So that when you use that, you just use, do you do you mix that with water, or you just put it right on?
Yeah, you definitely want to mix it with water.
There's obviously directions.
Imidacloprid,
Yeah,
IMIDACLOPRID.
thanks.
Sure. Yeah, there's lots of different ones. Bayer makes one. There's a bunch of different generics of Merit too. One of them's called, what is it? I'll think of it in a second. And then I'm not sure how many of you actually use like pre-emergence or anything like that, but there's two different types of pre-emergent. There's a liquid that you can spray and then water in, or there's a granular that you can broadcast, which is the easiest way to use it, and then water it in. But that will help if you've had problems. There's certain types of weeds that seem to show up in rose containers and rose beds all the time, like oxalis for one, but and sometimes mallow. Oh. And anytime you plant, if you're using something, if you're just working organic matter into your soil, it's a good idea to work sulfur in, as I was mentioning before. If you're digging a planting pit, people say somewhere between 33% organic to 50% organic, but sulfur would definitely be something to work in. And I actually recommend working gypsum in too, just because it'll help buffer the soil. Because pretty much uniformly in this area, you're gonna have a fairly alkaline soil to begin with. And anything you can do to get the soil pH below 8 makes everything a lot easier to grow things.
You know, I'm curious, Magnum Grow, it was designed by Dr. Tommy Cairns from California, who's a huge rose grower. But he told me years ago, he said, it was after it was on the market, he said that's the #1 marijuana growing fertilizer in the world. And so what properties make that such a good one for that crop and roses? I'm curious.
That's a good question, because I get people from Aravaca that come up and they buy a 10-30-20 for their thing in 25-pound bags, but I don't. Not my area of expertise. They always ask for 10-30-20, so I'm not sure.
Kevin, I talked to a rose hybridizer, Tom Caruth, and he said not to use a pre-emergent around roses, but he didn't say why, but he just says it.
That's interesting, because I think I told Lou the last time I was here, I was speaking to the Men's Garden Club, that was a while ago. And there was one of the rose growers, I'd say you'd be okay to use it once every couple of years, but he had used it regularly, and he was convinced that it had actually damaged the roots on the vines.
Oh, maybe that's so, but.
Because I don't know if it actually builds up in the soil. It shouldn't, theoretically, but.
I don't know if it builds up a toxicity but
Yeah.
he said do not
He
use
was
a
convinced that
pre-emergent
it burned the
around.
root hairs on him. But,
Could be, it could maybe burn something, but,
well, that's, well, now that you mention it, there's a big thing about glyphosate and these lawsuits about glyphosate, but the actual product that they're talking about is a combination of a contact and a pre-emergent that Monsanto made for essentially like Home Depot and people. And the contact herbicide has a weird interaction with the pre-emergent, is where that all comes from. Because the pre-emergent and the glyphosate by themselves the pre-emergent has no effect on anything. It wouldn't harm a weed if you threw pre-emergent as like the entire gallon jug on it. It's not gonna do anything to it.
but in combination with that other thing.
Yeah, apparently it has a real volatile molecule with it, so it causes an odd combination of things. And to glyphosate, everything is a weed. So if it's your favorite tree, shrub, rose bush,
It doesn't care.
it looks at it as a weed, yeah. So don't spray on a windy day if you're spraying.
So how would you apply glyphosate around it? How would you apply it to the ground? Because really, you're not spraying it over a tree or anything, it's just a small
Yeah.
leaf. How do you apply it?
It's called a directed spray. You want to use just a small spray bottle, and you want to spray when it's real still, and you want to pretty much get as close as you can. Or some people just actually take it and just use a brush and brush it on, because it wants to be taken up by the leaf surface. Anything green is what it is taken up by.
One other question, what do you do for grubs? Because that could be a real problem in the soils, especially in the fall.
Well, that's part of the reason too, I was talking about using the systemic as a soil drench, because it will take care of any of those grubs as it goes through the soil profile. Yeah, no, that's one of the primary things that it does, actually. Then the other thing that I would say is, I'm not sure how many of you have fungus problems, but there's a wide variety of fungicides available, typically mostly powdery mildew,
Yeah.
black spot, would those be the two primary ones?
Rarely get black spot.
Okay.
Probably the most big one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them that will take care of that, including some that are, again, like natural, organic ones. This one's a systemic fungicide, so again, it's taken up through the plant system. This one actually will take care of root rot in a wide variety of plant material. But yeah, any of them, almost any fungicide, just check the label and make sure it lists powdery mildew, because that's the primary one that I've ever heard of with roses. And that's usually right around monsoon season, when you get higher humidity.
No, in the spring is when we mostly get it. We still have cool nights and
Okay.
warm days. Then it's
Okay.
gonna start, and some roses are more susceptible than others. The leaf will start curling, and then you'll see it kind of like the little powdery underneath there.
Okay.
And it's usually after a windstorm, because it seems like the wind drives it into the leaves too.
Interesting.
The downy mildew is the one that they get in California. That's the really bad one. We don't get that because it's
It's
the
dry
high
enough.
humidity, too dry for it.
Okay.
Thank God.
Does neem work for that also?
Yes.
It has fungicidal properties, yes. So, I mean, if you're spraying it, it should actually give you a little bit of protection in and of itself, yes.
Thanks.
Sure.
What do you recommend for like aphids? You know, you can see the leaves being shiny, and you turn it over, and there's those green little things.
Yeah. Just about any of the organic ones will take care of that. So you don't have to use a systemic for them typically.
You spray it or you put it on?
Yeah, just spray it. And a lot of them are ready to use, so they're real easy to actually.
Wash it off.
Yeah, I tried that, but they come back.
That's a long walk for
I use that, you know, the spray nozzle and you glue it going, and it's
Actually, yeah, no, there's an adjustable hose nozzle sitting up here. But yeah, I don't know that you'll ever get rid of them completely unless you, I think using something like a soap-based organic insecticide helps. The other one, like thrips, I don't think you're actually ever gonna get rid of them without using something like a systemic. Aphids are fairly soft bodied, so they're fairly easy to, most things will take care of them.
So you just put in a hand pump sprayer and then just drench the soil?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Or you can actually just mix it in a 5-gallon bucket.
And just dump it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you don't really have to even spray it, you can just water it around just like a normal irrigation, basically, except not quite that much.
So how much per plant then, if you're gonna do it that way?
Just enough to wet the soil.
Just the soil
Yeah.
and not to have.
Yeah, you don't need to, definitely don't want to fill, like if it's in a container, you
Like
don't
you
want.
would if you were, if you were fertilizing with Magnum,
Yeah.
it's a gallon or 2 gallons for the Florida, so it stands, but then you just, with the others, you just wet
Yeah,
the
just mix
soil.
it to the label direction and just actually put it around, and typically not right up against the cane itself. Around the exterior is the better way to go.
We always recommend that we water first and then fertilize or do whatever application, so the plant's fully hydrated and the soil can grab it.
Yeah, exactly, not gonna repel it.
Yeah.
I know you talked about in one of the diatomaceous earth, what other organic stuff do you have?
Well, this one, I'm probably don't have slugs and snails with roses typically, but this is an iron phosphate product that takes care of slugs and snails. Can be used around pets, no re-entry period whatsoever. This one is also, the BT is an organic pesticide, that's an organic pesticide, the neem's organic, the pyrethrin soap is organic, and the spinosad, those are all organic. The only one that's not organic actually would be the systemic.
Is there an organic systemic?
What's that?
Is
Yeah,
there-
not that I'm aware of anyway.
Would that one be dangerous to beneficial insects,
Which one?
the one that's not organic?
The systemic, yeah, no. Any type of insect that is actually actively feeding on the plant. But I mean, I have heard people, part of the reason why they have this one at the percentage they do is because there's like hive colony collapse for bees is related to people using that product at a higher rate than they're supposed to.
Yeah. But I mean, in your garden generally, you have a lot of other beneficials around, and they get in with the roses and everything else. So
Yeah.
I just wonder if that's particularly dangerous or not.
It just,
Not so much, but
not that I'm aware of, that's part of the reason why they have it at the active ingredient percentage they do, because there's certain other ones that are considerably higher active ingredient, and they recommend same rate. That's part of the reason why we don't carry those. But
thank you.
sure.
And then how many months will that systemic be effective?
Actually, one application in the spring should be sufficient.
For the whole year?
Well, that's, I mean, there's some of them that will tell you to put it on twice a year, but I'd say once should be sufficient.
Okay.
Hey, Larry, didn't you put on a systemic on the ground bare or something at one time that you said worked really well? Something you did.
Bayer makes something like that, and I
Yeah,
use that.
they're all pretty much imidacloprid, yeah.
The merit, but I thought it was that grub control that had the merit in it. It
There's
seemed
one
like
called Criterion is the one I was trying to think of before. It's-
Yeah,
It's
that
a
lawn
generic-
control stuff that they sell in
generic
the foil. It seemed like that really knocked the thrip back too when I put that on for the grubs.
Oh, it should,
Because it went up
yeah.
into the, all of a sudden I had clean white blooms.
What was
But I had
that
to explain.
again?
That Bayer grub lawn control, the stuff that they sell at the big box stores, it has merit, I think is the active ingredient, which
If
is
you
a
can find
systemic.
it, I looked after our last meeting at Lowe's and that, and I couldn't, they didn't have any in.
It might be a supply
I
chain
thought, well, maybe
issue.
it's too early and they'll come in.
So you use that as around the roses?
I just happened to do it, I just, sometimes you get lucky. I was treating grubs, because I had a grub infestation. I just was finding grubs and I was just like, take my trowel, just catapult them out into the street. And then the birds,
Let the birds have
the
it.
birds have them, and, but then when I treated them, I noticed it made a difference in the cleanliness of the bloom too, because it knocked the thrip back.
Good.
But I haven't used it since.
I'm curious, what are some of the more bizarre things you've heard that people use for flowers that don't work? What's some of those strange things?
That gets back to the if a pound is good, the 5 pounds would be a great thing. And then they say, well, I don't know, so could you come out and look at it? The good news is, if it comes back, it's gonna be really green. It comes back out, but no guarantees on that.
And how about for your super bloom? Do you,
Well, that one's just a real high phosphorus, it's a 1255.6. So it's literally the highest phosphorus, water soluble I've ever seen, actually.
sometimes I mix that with the magnum,
Yeah.
but not at full strength, but like.
Well, the nice thing about it too is it's actually a fairly high acid forming formulation, which again helps like get rid of alkali
No.
and buffer your pH.
What do you recommend that we do after pruning? We have all this bare stalks, you know, and hopefully the new growth will not be eaten away. What do you recommend we put on it, or spray on it, or put on the ground?
I'm sorry, after pruning?
Pruning, yeah, like I just pruned my roses, they all look like sticks sticking out.
Okay.
And I'm reading Lou's guide over here that says spray something so it doesn't get infested with like grows. What do you?
You know, what I've got to explain, last fall, for the first time in 40 years, we got an infestation of scale.
Oh, okay.
We had never had that, or I never noticed it, but it almost killed like 6 of our plants.
Oh, wow.
And it was unbelievable. I mean, when I really noticed it in about September, stems were completely covered with these little armored,
Yes.
small little round circles. And then people that I called, they said, oh, use acephate or Orthe, and spray it on immediately twice, 7 days apart. And then next January, when you prune it all the way back, they'd use a horticultural oil.
That's what I was gonna say, because that
Yeah.
should actually smother scale.
But that's what that was all about, and why we really never sprayed horticultural oil except for this one time.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because it's used an awful lot on fruit trees, actually, because they get a.
So you don't have to spray them after you prune them with an oil? Or,
Well, it depends, and if you have, like, if you had a problem with something
Yeah.
like that, then it would be a good idea the following year to go ahead and
but
put it
not
on as a
necessarily every
preventative.
year?
But, yeah, if you don't see a problem, you don't actually need to use
We're
it.
just trying to make sure everything is dead.
Yeah, that's right, is it a pesticide that you spray too, or?
No, he's just.
It's just a horticultural oil.
Right, neem oil.
Well, the one that we use, it was called JTS Stylet oil, or something like that.
Yeah, there's one called Safety Side, or
Yeah.
that's, I mean, this
Yeah,
one's
like that, that's
similar thing,
perfect.
but
Yeah, that's perfect.
So you spray that on the bear canes,
yeah.
Yeah.
just as a preventative?
Mhm.
Yes,
Now, or
now.
if you have a problem?
Yeah,
Now.
once you do your pruning,
Now
that'll be the time to use it, because it's nice and cool.
Yeah.
And then just do it now before any new growth starts, you don't want any new growth.
New growth now.
I've got a bunch of new growth.
Yeah, it's like I don't wanna lay, you go to sleep.
I was having a hard time pruning because I couldn't believe all the new growth that I've got. It's just, I'm very surprised. I didn't know I was gonna call Terry and say, help, I don't know what to do, because I was having a hard time pruning actually.
I just prune it all off. Just go back to the bear canes,
Really?
start over. Unless it's a new basil break that's coming up, then don't touch it.
No, it's not a basil break, but I was getting, I had a lot of little things new, you know, they were new, and I pruned 10 days ago.
Yeah, just get rid of them. I get rid of all that stuff.
I don't know
The
how
only
to do
thing
that.
I'm gonna save is a new basil break, which is a brand new cane that's coming up. Yeah, you just, if you have some flowers, cut them and bring them in the house, but if you have buds, too bad, go away.
Oh, I can't do it. I have a hard time doing it.
No mercy.
I said, you come over, you do it.
Okay.
Same with grapevines, actually. My brother has a winery in Elgin. Then I'm not sure what type of pruners you folks like to use, but there's a lot of different varieties of pruners. There's all kinds of different nozzles that you can use. I'm not sure. We carry rooting hormone. This actually, if you grow herbs, is a nice organic herb fertilizer to grow more mix too. Never have enough fresh herbs, I would say. But yeah, the Dram line is literally the best water wands, nozzles, irrigation products that I've ever seen. So they're sometimes a little slow shipping from Wisconsin, but very nice people.
So where are you located at?
My yard is at 22nd and Pantano, basically, where I do my soil mixing and stuff. But most of this stuff I've put into storage units. As I shut down a warehouse that I wasn't using. But typically I just drop stuff off 4 people are at my house, I want to pick stuff up.
Okay.
And there's quite a few people who
That's
have been to my house. So you know where I live, I guess.
At 22nd and Pantano.
They're across from the QT?
Exactly.
Well, you're not Acme.
No, they're actually, I'm basically using some of their space there. I've known them for a long time.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right by their own.
If you need anything, we call you and then.
Yeah, there's some cards here, and yeah.
Did you have any water?
Sure.
Promise, last question for me. How do you intensify color? Let's say you have pinks in a rose, how do you get it so that it's even more intense? What would you recommend? If you can do anything, I don't know.
I couldn't tell you, actually. I know for hydrangeas,
What do you do for hydrangeas?
they call it bluing hydrangeas. There's an actual fertilizer they make called the hydrangea bluing formulation. But I've never had anybody ask for it, so I've never even actually seen a bottle of it. I've just seen it in the catalog.
Isn't that the same as like rust, or they would use like hydrangeas to put it in the ground and it would make the blue more?
That's, I mean, I've seen Martha Stewart do it, but I don't know.
I know about it.
We were told to
The hydrangea fertilizer is
Aluminum sulfate?
it makes them blue, but the hybridizers now hybridize most of the hydrangeas, so they are colored.
Yeah, because that's actually one of the most acidic things on the planet is aluminum sulfate.
Do you sell just soil and mixtures at your yard, or do you sell any of these things? Or are these suggestions for people to go find them?
Oh, no, I mean, I sell all these things. Mostly I deliver them to, like, independent nurseries, but I sell them too.
Do you have a list online, or does somebody just have to come to your yard, or how do we know what you've
Well,
got?
actually, Lou's been working on that, and I've fallen behind by 2 years now, getting all that information to him.
But if somebody was interested and they wanted to stop by? can they-
Actually, what I'll do is I'll get some catalogs to Lou for all these products. Like, the pruning people have sold theirs to a company in Utah, so they have been 3 years late getting catalogs. And Growmore discontinued their entire organic line, so they're supposedly working on a new catalog, so it's not,
They're buying now.
But you have some business cards that you can.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
You
them.
wanna order
You
some
want
stuff
me
for
to take
Kevin?
We
Yeah.
do it down the street.
Yeah. Go buy it 100 times a day.
I lied, I have one more question.
Okay.
Explain some of the problems you're having now with the distribution system, and if people want to get something, how long should they plan for it? Because, you know, if they wanted something for the spring, they probably should have ordered it earlier, but there's problems.
Well, as long as I have it, it would take literally 24 hours. I just got 2 master cases of moisture meters that I paid for last December, earlier in January of this year, so that was 13 months.
Wow.
And some of these pruners actually showed up before that, but by like 10 months after they were picked.
You have much larger quantities than what you show here also.
Oh, yeah, no, I have, well, yeah, there's 25-pound bags of just about all these. There's 50-pound bags of a lot of similar analysis fertilizers. And those are definitely the cheaper way to buy stuff, yeah. Like the 25-pound bag of Magnum Rose is definitely the way to buy in.
And you have that at your yard, or we have to get that
We have to
at
call
your
it, I
house?
think.
Or I mean, I can grab one and just meet you someplace.
Okay.
That's, I mean, I'm all over town pretty much every day of the week. No, you don't have to drive to First and Orange Grove if you live on the east side of town.
Would it be a good idea if we just write down off your table what we're interested in and then call you up and see
Sure.
if you have it?
No, anything that's here, I have.
Oh, okay, good.
They're not single items, they're boxes and boxes, most of them.
Right, show me the best now. Oh, yeah, take a picture, I forget.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.